In the early 2000s, a series of audio recordings were made of Stephen Clarence Packer. Born in 1886, Stephen grew up in the emerging city of Nelson, working for the family business, milling wood, driving bullocks, and processing flax in the Maitai Valley, in an area that became known as Packer's Bush.
My name is Stephen Clarence Packer, last remaining grandson of Jabez Packer and youngest son of John Packer, settler of Nelson.
Stephen's grandson, David, transcribed these recordings, creating a wonderful resource of the history of the Maitai Valley and the life of early settlers in Nelson. Packer's Bush was around 8 kilometres from Nelson, along a rough horse track with no bridges. Today, the land is owned by the Ngāti Kuata Trust and includes the Pene Armini restoration site. Packer's Bush was 800 acres of native trees and rambling bush, with a few streams that never ran dry. The family lived in a cob house and planted a small orchard.
There was a good orchard there, of a good many cherry trees. I remember we used to pick them and get cases and cases from them. There were also large apple trees there and a codling apple, and I never tasted better apples. Mother used to make some lovely pies.
They had goats for milk, pigs for meat, as well as horses and bullocks for transport. At a young age, Stephen was put to work helping his father.
About this time, Father had fixed up a pluming. We ran the water from the creek and had a water wheel made. We had a flax bell there. We used to dress the flax. It was laid out to dry, and then finally it was made into twine and then into rope.
They made their living off the land in a variety of ways.
I remember we used to flip the birch bark in the Maitai Valley. It was usually done in the springtime, and you would nick round the bark and then peel it off. We would cart it down to the Blicks. He had a tannery up the Brook Street Valley. He would then crush it up and put it into the pits with the hides. He used to go around the country buying up the sheepskins and bullock skins, and it was very, very good leather.
There was a circular saw for firewood, mainly white pine and Mātai, and a pit saw used to mill rimu and miro for building timber, supplying the whole region. Around 1889, the family moved into a house in Niles Street, where Stephen's mother died not long after.
I have very pleasant memories of dear mother, though I wasn't very old at the time. We used to have a bell ring in Nelson. We used to advertise by walking up the main streets ringing a bell. It was something like this. Will you speculators make your way down to Mr. Locke's auction room? Large quantity of second-hand furniture, too numerous to mention. It used to go on like that. Another time I remember we had a ghost scare in Nelson. It wasn't a ghost that was scaring the people, it was a real person who used to go round to people's houses, knock on the door. He had a white sheet over his head. He had phosphorus too, it was on. Father was coming home one night, and it was very dark over the church hill. He saw something white in the trees. Now he said, this is a chance to catch the ghost. So he crept along and could see this white thing moving about, and he was just about to make a run to grab it. Found out it was a horse with a white cover on. We used to have quite a lot of fun there as children. On the hill at the back, leading up to the girls' college, we used to go up there with a trolley and come down at a great rate. It was very, very happy days that we spent there.
While living in Niles Street, the family continued to work the land at Packer's Bush. Stephen tells a story of a hard life, but a good life.
You would walk up Niles Street, over the footbridge, up to Huddleston's Corner, up to the place where the walnuts used to grow, and we used to creep through the hedges and get them. Then you came to the quarry, where they used to get metal. They used to crack the stone, it was all cracked by hand. And then you followed the river up, past where Handy Parkers now. There's a line of poplars alongside the river. Then you came to what we call the Iron Gate. From there, you would follow the river up to Denny's Hole, well known as in the early days as a swimming hole, and into Denny's Paddock.
Beyond Denny's Hole, there was a little stream called Grandfather's Stream.
Walking down, we always used to have a drink. It's nice fresh water, and it's running today just the same as it was 80 years ago.
Large flocks of native pigeons, or keruru, were common.
We had the kiwis there too. I remember the last place I saw one, up on what we call the Whare Bank. Then we had the korkors. I think they're almost extinct now. One time there, the bush was full of them. And the noise they make is a kind of a whistle. Something like that.
Living in a whare Stephen's father built, young Stephen worked hard supplying Nelson's builders with their wood. At the age of 15, tragedy struck once again.
I must tell you about the big bushfire we had. I think it would be about 1898 or 99. Very dry in the summertime. And the spark got into some moss in this tree.
Stephen and his brother Harry were the only people on the property at the time. Armed with only a bucket and a wheelbarrow to get water from the creek, they couldn't contain the fire, which ended up burning for weeks. Unbelievably, not long after, Stephen was once again dealing with a family tragedy when an accident occurred carting timber out of the valley.
Horses and the dray went right over the bank into the creek, turned upside down. Father was thrown from the dray and under the horse. The shaft was across him and the horse was on top. Father was conscious at the time, and I asked him what I should do, and he said, well, take the leader off and go back for help. My brother Harry then got on the horse and galloped back, and I followed on foot. The last words that I remember my father saying was a prayer. He was in a great deal of pain, I know, and just as I got back, he passed away. It was a very great blow to us all.
The farm was leased and eventually sold. Looking for better work opportunities, Stephen moved to Christchurch, taking up an apprenticeship with his uncle in a successful building company. In Christchurch, Stephen married his wife Annie, and together they raised 4 children. Stephen returned to Nelson and spent many years travelling the region building. In the 1950s, the family moved to Featherston, convincing daughter Nancy and youngest son Eric to bring their now growing families. Stephen ran a general store for many years and passed away in 1974. The Maitai held many special memories for Stephen, some happy and others sad. He loved the trees and the bird life and often spoke of the challenges of the early days trying to make a living in Packer's bush.